28 July 1940, Salzburg, Austria. Shortly after the fall of France, the German dictator Adolf Hitler organizes a conference with Slovak politicians demanding the expulsion of the moderate faction from the Slovak government and its replacement by pro-German radicals. The Führer hints that failure to comply will leave Slovakia at the mercy of Hungary. The Slovaks concede. 2 years later, in March 1942, the systematic deportation of Slovak Jews to death camps begins. Between March and October 1942, some 58,000 Slovak Jews are concentrated in labor and concentration camps, then deported to the extermination camps of German-occupied Poland. Among them is Helena Citronova. Helena Citronova, one of 4 children of Jewish parents, was born on 26 August 1922 in Humen, then part of Czechoslovakia. Her father was a cantor, and because Helena loved to sing and dance, her older brother joked that one day he would take her to Prague to perform. In 1934, Helena's sister Rosika and her husband emigrated to Palestine. Unable to find work, they returned to Czechoslovakia in 1939 with their daughter, though the Jews in Palestine had warned them, "Are you crazy? There's a war brewing." By the time the family realized their mistake, it was too late. The Second World War began on 1 September 1939, when Nazi Germany invaded Poland. In April 1940, Slovakia passed its first Aryanization law, seizing Jewish-owned property and excluding Jews from the economy. On 9 September 1941, the Slovak government passed the Jewish Code, 270 articles long, longer than the Slovak Constitution itself, and the strictest set of anti-Jewish laws in Europe. It excluded Jews from public life, forced them to wear the yellow star, and confiscated their property. When some in government objected, Prime Minister Wojciech Tuka said simply, "I am not a Democrat." According to a census taken in December 1940, there were 89,000 Jews in Slovakia. In March 1942, the Slovak state signed an agreement with Germany permitting their deportation. Slovakia was the first state outside direct German control to agree to deport its own Jewish citizens. Victims were given only 4 hours warning to prevent escape. Beatings, forced shaving, and invasive searches for hidden valuables were commonplace. In 1942, Joseph Tiso, a Catholic priest and the Slovak president, gave a speech justifying the deportations. Hitler remarked afterward, "It is interesting how this little Catholic priest Tiso is sending us the Jews." Virtually all of the deported Slovak Jews were killed in Auschwitz, Majdanek, Sobibor, and elsewhere. Of those deported in 1942, only 300 survived. By the end of the Holocaust, more than 2/3 of the Jews living in Slovakia had been murdered. On 25 March 1942, Helena Citronova was among 997 teenage girls and unmarried young women deported on the first official transport of Jews to Auschwitz. Told they would be doing government work service for a few months, they had actually been sold to the Germans as slave labor. They arrived the next day. Helena worked in an outdoor command unit, demolishing buildings and shifting rubble, sleeping on bug-ridden straw as the women around her began to die. She would later recall, "We weren't allowed to run, so when the wall came down, the first girls were crushed and died on the spot." On 30 October 1942, Helena began working at the Canada warehouse, sorting the confiscated possessions of murdered Jews. It was one of the few sought-after jobs at Auschwitz. The prisoners there received food and water and were not beaten. That same day, Helena took part in a musical performance for the prisoners. She was noticed by Franz Wunsch, one of the SS personnel overseeing the warehouse. When she finished singing, he asked her to sing it again. She would later recall looking up through tears and thinking, "God, where are the eyes of a murderer? These are the eyes of a human being." Wunsch fell in love with her. He brought her extra food and clothing, gave up his own rations for her, and when she caught typhus, hid her and nursed her back to health. He passed her notes that read, "I fell in love with you." Helena later said, "I thought I'd rather be dead than be involved with an SS man." She had lost her parents and her brother at Auschwitz, killed on the camp's electrified fence while trying to escape. Over time, Helena began to feel something for Wunsch in return. The turning point came when her sister Rosika arrived at Auschwitz with her 9-year-old daughter and newborn son. Helena ran to the crematorium, certain they would be killed, and begged to die alongside them. A friend alerted Wunsch, who reached the crematorium just as Joseph Mengele, the SS physician known as the Angel of Death, was deciding who would live and who would die. Wunsch began beating Helena for violating curfew, and while he beat her, whispered, "Tell me quickly what your sister's name is before I'm too late." "Children," he said when he heard. "That's different. Children can't live here." He saved Rosika, claiming she worked for him in the warehouse. Her children were murdered in the gas chamber. The romance continued in secret. Helena was once interrogated and tortured about it, but never confessed, knowing they would both be executed if she did. She later said, "There were moments where I forgot that I was a Jew and that he was not. Honestly, in the end, I loved him. But it could not be realistic. According to Holocaust survivor Batsheva Dagan, the relationship was never sexual. Inmates slept stacked three to a bunk, and Helena could never have visited the officers' quarters without being caught. After the war, a former prisoner said of Wunsch, "He didn't do anything bad to us, but he was sadistic toward men." Until he met Helena, he hit and kicked women too, but afterward it was enough for him to beat only men. Helena had a positive influence on him. Yet another survivor testified that during the camp uprising of October 1944, one shot a 20-year-old Greek Jew without mercy. Their relationship ended in January 1945 as the Soviet army approached. In their last conversation, Franz told her, "Take care, Helena, you'll make it. I've loved you so much." Then they kissed, long and intimately. On 27 January 1945, the Soviet army liberated Auschwitz, freeing about 7,000 prisoners, most of them ill and dying. Helena Citronova was among them. For the next 27 years, she and Franz Wunsch would not see each other. Helena married, moved to Israel, and had two children. Wunsch settled in Austria and started his own family. In 1972, Wunsch, then 50, was put on trial for war crimes. Helena, at his wife's desperate request, traveled to Vienna to testify on his behalf, despite threats from Jewish rights activists. She spoke of the good he had done, but also confirmed the crimes she had witnessed him commit. She spoke slowly, without emotion, never once looking at him, but when she reached her sister's murdered children, her voice caught. Wunsch began to cry. Despite what the judge called overwhelming evidence of guilt, Wunsch was acquitted on all counts. He and Helena never saw each other again. Franz Wunsch died on 23 February 2009 at 86. Helena Citronova died on 4 June 2007 in Tel Aviv at 84. There were many tears shed for Helena Citronova.